Imagine lying on the freezing ground, utterly alone in a wilderness that is just, well, crawling with predators.
Yeah, absolute isolation.
Right. You're starving, your feet are bleeding, and the only thing separating your face from a venomous viper is a jagged rock. A literal rock you're using as a pillow.
Which is an incredibly bleak picture.
It really is. And you aren't a wilderness survivalist here. You're a fugitive.
Mm.
You are running in a blind panic from a brother who has explicitly sworn to murder you.
Sworn to kill you, exactly.
And so, for everyone listening to this deep dive, this isn't the plot of a modern survival thriller. This is actually the hidden, terrifying reality behind one of the most serene, beautiful Sunday school stories of all time. I'm talking about Jacob's Ladder.
Oh yeah, the classic painting.
You know the one, right? A man peacefully dozing on this grassy, sun-dappled hill. There's a literal golden staircase stretching up into fluffy white clouds.
With angels just, gently gliding up and down.
Right, while a celestial choir hums in the background or whatever. It's a comforting, tranquil image, a fable. But when you step into the actual historical, geographical, and psychological reality of Genesis 28, that serene painting is completely shattered.
It doesn't even exist.
No, we are looking at a landscape and a state of mind that is gritty, desperate, and defined by total human collapse.
It really is the absolute zero of personal security. And to truly comprehend the spiritual magnitude of the transformation in this narrative, we really have to grasp the excruciating physical reality of that collapse.
The mental reality, too.
Yes, exactly. Because you cannot appreciate the ladder until you understand the rock. The theological significance is entirely anchored in the dirt, the dropping temperature, and the sheer terror of being caught out in the open at sunset.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is to look at Jacob's lowest point through a very physical, logistical, human lens. We're stripping away all those thousands of years of comfortable interpretations.
Which is so necessary. We have to focus on the man, the struggle, the fear.
Right, and that profound mental shift that happens when a broken person is met at their absolute lowest. So, to set the scene for you listening right now, Jacob has just deceived his blind father to steal his brother's blessing.
And his brother Esau vows to kill him.
Exactly. So Jacob flees his home in Beersheba, heading north for Haran. The text just simply notes that he reached an unnamed place, the sunset, he used a stone for a pillow, and went to sleep.
It's so understated.
It really is. Then comes the cosmic dream, the divine promises, and a man waking up completely changed. But before any heavens open up, we have to look at the ground. We have to look at the anatomy of a desperate flight.
The physical reality of it.
Yeah. If we examine the topographical and historical reality of the ancient Near East, Jacob is attempting a journey from Beersheba to Haran. Practically speaking, what is the scale of what he's trying to do here?
Well, it is a staggering logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
For a single unprepared person, I mean.
How far are we talking?
The distance from Beersheba, in the south of Canaan, all the way to Haran in Upper Mesopotamia, that is roughly 800 to 900 kilometers.
Oh, wow. So over 500 miles.
Well over 500 miles. And to put that into perspective, traveling on foot in the ancient world at a normal, healthy pace, unburdened, and with an organized group, you might cover maybe 20 to 25 kilometers a day.
Okay.
So you are looking at a month-long journey at the absolute minimum. And that's assuming ideal conditions.
Which never existed.
Right, never.
And the conditions he is starting in are the exact opposite of ideal. By the time we hit verse 11, where he stops because the sun sets, he has likely only been traveling for a day, maybe two.
He's barely started.
Right. He is only 20 to 60 kilometers north of Beersheba. He is still deep in the southern hill country of Canaan. He hasn't even made a dent in this 800-kilometer trek, and he is already collapsing. And this terrain, I mean, it isn't a flat, sandy beach.
Far from it. The central hill country, which is often referred to as the Ridge Route, or the Way of the Patriarchs, is an unbelievably unforgiving environment.
What's it actually like on the ground?
It is defined by steep, rocky limestone hills and deep, dry wadis, ravines carved out by ancient flash floods. The vegetation is incredibly sparse, consisting mostly of thorny scrub.
Just thorns and rocks.
Exactly. The ground itself is a hazard. It is a continuous, uneven minefield of loose, jagged limestone. Every single step requires intense cognitive focus.
You have to watch where you're putting your feet.
You aren't just walking, you are navigating. Because a single moment of inattention means a turned ankle or a broken leg. And for a lone traveler in the ancient world, a broken leg is essentially a death sentence.
from exposure or predators.
Absolutely.
But wait, I struggle to buy that he had absolutely nothing to mitigate this because let's be real, he's the son of Isaac. Isaac is a patriarch. He's essentially a wealthy tribal warlord with immense flocks and herds and servants.
Very wealthy, yes.
So even in a panic, wouldn't basic human survival instinct kick in? You grab a knife, you grab a water skin, maybe a heavy wool cloak, or even a donkey. Are we sure the historical context implies he was literally empty-handed? Or is the text just omitting mundane travel details because they aren't important to the story?
That is a crucial distinction. But the historical and literary context strongly suggests the deprivation is real. It's not just omitted. Consider the catalyst for his departure.
Rebecca, his mother.
Right. Rebecca hears of Esau's plot to murder Jacob the moment Isaac dies. She tells Jacob to flee immediately. Now, normal ancient travel was methodical. A journey of 800 kilometers required a caravan, pack animals, tents, an armed escort, and extensive provisions.
It was a whole production.
A huge communal undertaking. But Jacob has none of this. He is essentially a fugitive executing a panic flight.
Because if he had taken the time to pack...
Exactly. If he had assembled a caravan from Isaac's camp, Esau would have easily tracked him. Esau is a skilled hunter who spends his life tracking in the wilderness. A slow-moving, noisy caravan would be an easy target.
Oh, that makes sense. His only advantage is speed.
Speed and stealth. He has to disappear.
Yeah.
Therefore, he leaves the wealth behind.
Yeah.
He's running out of the burning house with whatever's on his back.
Wow. So his physical condition is deteriorating rapidly by the hour. His feet, likely clad in simple leather sandals, are being battered by sharp limestone.
Just shredded.
His joints are aching from the constant elevation changes of those ravines. His throat is parched because dependable water sources are scarce along that ridge. And he is burning massive amounts of adrenaline and calories just from the sheer terror of being hunted.
He is physically redlining.
And then we hit this phrase, the sun had set. To a modern reader, the sun setting just means the streetlights come on and you head inside for dinner.
Right, it's cozy.
But in the reality of the ancient Near East, that phrase is a structural trapdoor.
What's fascinating here is how absolute that trapdoor is. Sunset in antiquity isn't a transition into a nice evening. It is a terrifying collapse of your world.
Because you can't see anything.
Visibility drops to absolute zero. There is no ambient light pollution from nearby cities. It is pitch black over a jagged, hazardous landscape. Navigation becomes literally impossible.
You just fall into a ravine.
Exactly. Furthermore, the thermodynamics of the desert and hill country mean the temperature drops precipitously. A landscape that was blistering hot under the afternoon sun can approach freezing at night.
And then the environment comes alive, right? The threats that were sleeping during the day wake up.
Yes, because the predators own the night.
We're talking about the Syrian brown bear, Arabian leopards, striped hyenas, and packs of wolves.
All hunting in that exact region.
Not to mention the human element. Bandits specifically use the cover of darkness along these trade routes to hunt easy targets. And a lone, exhausted, unarmored man stumbling through the dark is the absolute bottom of the food chain.
Which perfectly explains why he stops at an unnamed place. Moving forward in the dark on a limestone ridge is guaranteed disaster. You cannot see the ravine right in front of your feet. You cannot see the leopard in the brush. He doesn't stop because he found a nice campsite. The Hebrew phrasing implies he stumbled upon it.
It's just a random spot.
It is just open ground. No walls, no fire, no shelter. His body has hit a physiological wall, and the darkness has trapped him. He stops because continuing is simply physically impossible.
And that brings us to the detail that has been, entirely misunderstood by centuries of serene artwork. The stone pillow.
Oh, the famous pillow.
Yeah. He takes a stone, puts it under his head, and lies down. Again, the Sunday school version makes it seem like he found a perfectly smooth, ergonomic rock and just propped himself up for a nice nap.
Like a memory foam rock.
Right. But looking at the reality of survival in this environment, that stone is a brutal, necessary tool.
He chooses a rock because there is literally no other option. He has no tent roll, no thick traveling cloak to fold up, no pack to lean against. It is just dirt and limestone.
But he actively chooses to elevate his head.
Yes. The choice to elevate his head on a stone serves critical survival functions. First, the ground itself becomes a heat sink at night. Keeping the base of your skull, where the brainstem is, and your neck off the freezing earth, is a desperate attempt to preserve core body temperature.
And beyond the temperature, you have the immediate, localized wildlife.
The creepy crawlies.
Yeah, the desert floor at night is a highway for the Palestine viper and the deathstalker scorpion. You want your face and your airways as far away from the ground as possible.
Just the psychological horror of that is staggering.
Just trying to fall asleep knowing that a jagged rock digging into the back of your skull is your primary defense against a viper slithering over your face. I mean, it completely alters the tone of this narrative.
It forces him into what survival psychologists call survival sleep.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, when your neck is cranked over a hard, uneven stone, you cannot enter deep, restorative REM sleep. The physical discomfort keeps you hovering in a state of light, tense microsleep.
So he's not really sleeping?
No. And this is intentional. He needs to be able to wake up instantly at the slightest sound, the snap of a twig, the crunch of gravel, the heavy breathing of an animal, or the footsteps of his brother. He is keeping himself deliberately uncomfortable to stay alive.
It's like when you have an incredibly early flight and you set your alarm for 3 in the morning.
I hate that.
You lie in bed, and you might drift off, but your brain refuses to enter deep sleep because you are terrified of missing the alarm. You wake up feeling like you ran a marathon because your nervous system never actually shut down.
That's a great analogy.
Jacob is doing that deliberately, but his alarm clock is the sound of a predator in the brush. This intense physical deprivation, the bleeding feet, the freezing temperatures, the hypervigilance, the sheer exhaustion, it doesn't just break the body. It completely fractures the mind.
It shatters it.
We have to move from his physical surroundings to his internal landscape. Let's look at the mental collapse of the fleeing deceiver. Who exactly is Jacob at this exact moment in time?
To understand his psychological state, we really have to look at his immediate history. Jacob is not a hardened outdoorsman. The text explicitly contrasts him with his brother Esau earlier in Genesis.
Right, Esau is the rugged one.
Exactly. Esau is the hunter, the man of the open country. Jacob is described as a quiet man, staying among the tents. He is a homebody. He has spent his entire life in the wealthy, protected, highly structured encampment of his father.
And now he is entirely defined by what he just did to destroy that life.
Yes, he deceived his blind, dying father. He stole the family blessing. He essentially shattered his family.
His mind is an absolute war zone right now. He is experiencing profound isolation for the very first time in his life. He went from being surrounded by family, servants, and the noise of a massive pastoral camp to the deafening silence of a hostile wasteland.
Total shock to the system.
And modern survival psychology tells us that sudden, extreme isolation, when compounded by severe caloric deficit, dehydration, and sleep deprivation, rapidly degrades a person's mental stability.
It happens so fast.
There is no human reassurance available. No one to say, it's going to be okay, or even to help formulate a plan. He is trapped in a traumatic fight-or-flight loop.
And that loop consumes all cognitive bandwidth.
What happens to the brain in that state?
When an organism is running from an immediate lethal threat, the brain literally reroutes energy away from the prefrontal cortex, which is the area responsible for long-term planning and complex thought, and channels it straight into the amygdala, the fear center.
So he can't even think ahead.
Jacob cannot process the 800 kilometers ahead of him. He cannot process how he will find his uncle in Haran. He only processes the panic of the present moment. He is a man whose identity was built on being clever, on scheming, on outsmarting his brother.
But out here, that doesn't work.
Exactly. Out here on the limestone ridge, cleverness is useless. You cannot con a leopard. You cannot outsmart freezing temperatures. His primary survival mechanism, his intellect and deception, has been completely stripped away.
I want you, the listener, to just place yourself on that ground for a second. You are lying on a freezing rock. You are completely alone in the pitch black. Every shadow morphs into a threat. Every gust of wind sounds like footsteps.
It's terrifying.
You know your own brother, a man trained to hunt and kill, wants to murder you. And worst of all, as you lie there shivering, the realization washes over you that you are the architect of your own destruction.
You brought this on yourself.
Yes, your deception caused this. The guilt of lying to your dying father, the terror of your brother, the physical agony of the cold, it is a crushing intersection. And what strikes me deeply about this moment is what Jacob doesn't do.
The theological vacuum.
Exactly. Because this is a biblical narrative, we tend to project piety onto the characters. We assume Jacob is out there praying for deliverance, but he's not.
The text is entirely silent on any religious observance from Jacob before he falls asleep.
Nothing at all.
Nothing. There is no altar built. There is no sacrifice offered. He utters no prayer. He is the grandson of Abraham, the inheritor of a massive divine covenant, but in this moment on the rock, he is completely spiritually bankrupt.
He's not looking for God.
He is not seeking a spiritual retreat. He is looking for a way to survive the night. He is entirely consumed by his physical and emotional misery.
If we connect this to the broader patterns in historical and literary texts of the ancient Near East, deities were often associated with specific locations, temples, or moments of grand victory. But here, the narrative structure is doing something radically different with the concept of divine encounter.
It reveals a profound subversion of ancient expectations.
Mm.
God repeatedly meets the patriarchs not in moments of triumph, stability, or religious piety, but in moments of utter failure, flight, and lack.
Like Isaac.
Right, Isaac was met by God during a severe famine. And here, God does not appear to Jacob in the comfort of Isaac's wealthy tent when Jacob is feeling victorious about successfully stealing the blessing.
He meets him in the dirt.
God meets him when his schemes have failed, his resources are gone, his body is given out, and his identity is shattered.
It is the absolute synthesis of a lowest point. Past guilt, an unknown and terrifying future, and total, immediate physical vulnerability. And it is precisely at this point when the deception has yielded nothing but dirt and cold, and the body has finally just surrendered to exhaustion that the interruption occurs.
The dream.
Yeah. Jacob manages to pass out on his jagged rock, and his mind is suddenly flooded with a vision. Let's look at the interruption of collapse and the sudden influx of mental clarity.
The dream is so striking in its imagery. Jacob sees a stairway or a ladder resting on the earth with its top reaching to heaven. Angels of God are ascending and descending on it. And there above it, or beside him, depending on how you translate the Hebrew preposition, stands God.
And the words spoken to him are massive. God promises him the very dirt he is shivering on. He promises descendants so numerous they will be like the dust of the earth, spreading out in every direction.
It's an overwhelming promise.
But more intimately, God promises constant supervised presence. He says, I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you.
To understand the power of this dream, we really have to contrast the visual language of the vision with the physical reality of the dreamer. Down on the ground, Jacob's reality is entirely horizontal and chaotic.
He's just running horizontally across the map.
Right. He is fleeing across the earth, the bandits, the jagged rocks, the brother hunting him. It is all chaotic, menacing movement on a horizontal plane. But the dream introduces a vertical axis of perfect, unshakable order.
This ladder stretching up?
Yes, the imagery of the ladder or stairway is strongly reminiscent of a Mesopotamian ziggurat, a massive terrace structure designed to bridge the gap between heaven and earth.
But the crucial difference here is that humans build ziggurats from the ground up to try and reach the guides. In this vision, the stairway is initiated from the top down. It is a divine invasion of a hostile earthly space.
It changes the entire dynamic.
It really does.
Yeah.
But let's look at what this dream actually accomplishes practically. Because if we are being honest, it doesn't fix a single one of his immediate physical problems.
That is the most profound paradox of the narrative. The dream does not alter his physical circumstances in the slightest.
He doesn't wake up with a sandwich.
It doesn't magically manifest a roasted lamb to cure his hunger.
Yeah.
Doesn't drop a warm woolen blanket over his shivering shoulders. It doesn't teleport him safely to his uncle's estate in Haran. And it certainly doesn't pacify his brother Esau.
So when she wakes up,
When Jacob wakes up, the temperature will still be freezing, the rocks will still be sharp, the distance to Haran will still be 800 kilometers. The physical danger is identical.
here's where it gets really interesting. If the dream doesn't fix his physical reality, what is its actual function? Why does this vision transform him so completely?
Because it operates on a different level.
It systematically dismantles his psychological collapse. It answers his three deepest, most terrifying unspoken fears.
Precisely. We discussed that cognitive load, right? That looping panic of the isolated fugitive. The dream directly addresses the architecture of that panic. Fear number one, am I totally alone?
And the answer is no, God is with him, actively watching over him.
Exactly. Fear number two, is this journey random? Am I just stumbling blindly into the wilderness to die a meaningless death?
The answer is no, the journey is supervised, and there is a direct, active connection between the terrifying earth he is sleeping on and the heavens above.
And fear number three, does my past define my future? Does the fact that I am a deceitful, broken man mean my story is over?
And the answer is no. A new, unearned cosmic promise dictates his future now, not his past failures.
It gives him a cosmic framework. It doesn't give him a map of Haran, but it gives him orientation.
I want to dwell on this concept of orientation versus escape because it changes everything about human endurance. When Jacob went to sleep, he was purely in a state of escape. He was running away from something.
Just blind flight.
The space around him felt indifferent at best and actively homicidal at worst. But the vision reorients him. It reveals that the space isn't empty. It is actively overseen. He's no longer just running away from death. He is being guided toward a destiny.
That realization that the environment is not a void, but a supervised space completely interrupts his internal collapse. This profound mental reorientation triggers a radical shift in how Jacob perceives himself, his reality, and his capacity to endure.
Which brings us to the internal shift. We need to look at the man who went to sleep versus the man who wakes up. Let's do a comparative state analysis of Jacob before the vision and immediately after. We established that before the dream, his body was exhausted, his muscles were fatigued, and he was physically defeated.
Entirely depleted.
After the dream, his biology hasn't changed. He still slept on a rock. He is still fatigued, but he is no longer defeated.
Because his fatigue has been reframed. In the field of sports psychology and in extreme survival situations, we see that a restored will actually stabilizes a failing physical body.
How does that work?
When the human brain decides that the pain has a purpose, that it is part of a meaningful narrative rather than just random suffering, it unlocks reservoirs of physical endurance that were previously inaccessible due to panic.
Oh, it's the exact mechanism of a marathon runner hitting the wall.
Yes, perfect example.
Around mile 20, the human body completely depletes its glycogen stores. Every alarm bell in the brain is screaming, "Stop! You are dying! Lie down!" The physical pain is overwhelming, and the body wants to shut down.
It's pure agony.
But if that runner turns a corner and suddenly sees their family standing at the finish line holding a sign and cheering for them, their perception of the pain instantly changes. The lactic acid in their muscles hasn't disappeared.
The biology is exactly the same.
Right. The micro tears in their fibers are still there. The physical environment hasn't changed, but their interpretation of the environment has changed. The pain is no longer a signal of death. It is the friction of getting to the finish line. They're suddenly able to keep running.
That is exactly what happens to Jacob. His mind shifts from being fragmented, looping through worst-case scenarios, to being organized and directed. The blinding fear of the unknown is replaced by the structure of a promise.
He has a finish line now.
Yes, he can now stand up and walk the remaining hundreds of kilometers. Not because his feet are miraculously healed, but because his mind has reframed the journey.
And his identity undergoes a seismic shift. When he lay down, he was defined by his worst moment. He was the con man who broke his father's heart and made his brother homicidal. He was a fugitive.
But he wakes up as the accompanied carrier of a future promise. What is vital to understand here is that the vision does not excuse his past deception.
It doesn't just wipe the slate clean.
The divine voice doesn't say, "Don't worry about lying to Isaac, it was a necessary strategy." Rather, the vision outgrows his past. It places a calling on his life that is significantly larger than his failure. He begins the mental transition from a desperate survivor merely reacting to fear into a patriarch moving purposefully toward a historical destiny.
Which fundamentally alters his experience of time and space. Before the dream, time felt heavy and oppressive. The night felt endless, and the journey felt impossible. Space was menacing.
Every shadow was a threat.
But after the dream, time becomes process-oriented. It's segmented into the steps required to fulfill the promise, and space becomes navigable. It's no longer an indifferent wasteland. But let me ask you this, because I think people often misinterpret religious experiences in these texts.
Okay, sure.
Does Jacob actually feel euphoric after this? Does he wake up doing a little dance, feeling this massive mountaintop high of spiritual ecstasy, completely devoid of fear?
That is a critical nuance, and the text is explicitly clear on this. It is not euphoria, it is profound sobriety.
Sobriety.
When Jacob wakes up, his immediate reaction is recorded as, he was afraid and said, "How awesome is this place?" But this fear is qualitatively different from the animal panic he felt when he went to sleep.
It's a different kind of fear.
The panic is transmuted into steadiness. The dread of predators and bandits has been eclipsed by reverence for the divine presence. He is grounded, deeply serious, and intensely aware of the staggering weight of what just happened. He achieves emotional grounding despite his continued physical solitude.
He's still alone. He still has to find water. He still has to worry about his brother. But he is steady.
Very steady.
However, being internally steady on a freezing rock doesn't get you to Haran. The sun eventually comes up, and that internal grounding has to translate into external action. What does a man actually do the morning after the sky rips open?
The sequence of his physical actions the following morning is deeply significant. He takes the very stone he had used as a pillow, the symbol of his ultimate deprivation and discomfort, and he sets it up as a pillar.
He stands it upright.
He pours oil on top of it, consecrating it, and then he names the place Bethel, which translates to house of God, and finally he makes a vow.
Let's focus on that sequence for a moment. Sleep, dream, wake, reflect, name. Why is the order of these actions so important to understanding the narrative?
It matters because naming the place is a cognitive act of reflection, not just a purely emotional reflex. Notice Jacob's realization, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. Ignorance precedes meaning. This challenges our entire human conception of how sacredness is formed.
Right, because we tend to think of holy sites as intrinsically glowing with magic. We think you walk onto a piece of ground and the hair on your arms stands up because the dirt itself is special.
Exactly. But Bethel wasn't holy before Jacob got there. It was just a rocky, dangerous ridge in the Canaanite highlands.
Just a terrifying place to sleep.
The ladder didn't descend because the location was inherently special. The location became special because the ladder descended. The sacredness was generated backward by the encounter. God's interventions happen in real, gritty, previously meaningless geography.
Meaning is retrospective.
Meaning is almost always retrospective. We often only realize a place or a moment in our lives was sacred after we've survived it, woken up, and reflected on it.
So, what does this all mean for Jacob's actual response? He makes a vow. And I have to say, looking at the actual text of this vow, it shocked me. It is incredibly raw. It is unpolished. It reads almost like a legal contract negotiated by a man who is still deeply traumatized.
It really does.
Let me read it for you. If God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear so that I return safely to my father's household, then the Lord will be my God.
It is highly, aggressively conditional. If you do these specific things, then you will be my God.
Let me push back on Jacob here because this feels almost offensive.
How so?
The creator of the universe just ripped open the fabric of reality, showed him a staircase to heaven, and promised him land, countless descendants, and cosmic protection. And Jacob wakes up and essentially says, okay, sure, but if you actually give me a sandwich, a coat, and make sure I don't die on the way to my uncle's house, then we have a deal.
It sounds so transactional.
It feels small. It feels like he completely missed the majesty of the point. He's negotiating with God like he's bartering for livestock.
It is very easy to judge Jacob from a comfortable modern armchair. But analyzing this from a psychological perspective highlights the profound realism of the narrative. This is what we call field-level trust under stress.
Field-level trust. That is a brilliant way to phrase it.
Think about the biological reality of the man speaking these words. He is still a man who just slept on a rock. He is still freezing. He is still starving. He is still terrified of his brother, Esau.
He's in survival mode.
Completely. He doesn't ask for kingdoms. He doesn't ask for wealth or power or dominion over his enemies. His immediate, urgent physical needs dictate his theology at this moment. He asks for bread to survive the hunger, clothes to survive the freezing nights, and safety to survive his brother.
It's essentially Maslow's hierarchy of needs applied to a biblical patriarch.
Exactly that.
You cannot process the cosmic self-actualizing promise of descendants like the dust of the earth until you know for a fact you aren't going to starve to death on a limestone ridge by Tuesday.
You literally can't. It isn't a polished, systematic theology. It isn't a beautiful, unconditional surrender. It is cautious, negotiated survival. And what is so remarkable is that the narrative doesn't condemn him for it.
God doesn't strike him with lightning for being impertinent.
The text presents this highly conditional vow as a profoundly human, realistic response to trauma and grace colliding. His theology is messy because his reality is messy. But it is enough.
It's enough to get him moving.
Yes. It is enough of a commitment to get him to stand up, turn his back on his ruined past, and take the first step toward Haran.
Bringing all these threads together, we see this incredible portrait of human resilience, divine timing, and the transformation of a mindset. We see how a man who is utterly broken by his own deceptive actions, driven to the point of physical collapse and mental fragmentation, is rebuilt.
He is completely rebuilt.
And the crucial takeaway is that he isn't rebuilt by the magical removal of his struggle. He is rebuilt by the addition of profound, orienting purpose.
That is the ultimate synthesis of this deep dive. The vision did not remove the hardship. It did not level the treacherous mountains. It did not shorten the 800-kilometer distance. And it did not change Esau's homicidal intentions.
The environment stayed the same.
But it completely removed the internal collapse. It shifted Jacob's momentum. He went from being desperately driven by a fear of death to being drawn forward by a newfound, albeit cautious, purpose. He walks the exact same dangerous road the next morning, but he walks with a mental map of orientation instead of the blind panic of escape.
Which brings us to the end of our journey today. We set out to dismantle the Sunday school image of the serene, grassy hill, and I think we've done exactly that.
We definitely took down that painting.
The story of Genesis 28 isn't primarily about a magical ladder in the clouds. It is about exhaustion. It is about exposure, lack, and the terrifying, isolating consequences of our own deceit. It is about the literal and metaphorical rocks we are forced to sleep on when we run out of options and our cleverness fails us.
And it is a testament to the fact that the most profound moments of clarity and redirection often arrive not when we are seeking them in comfort, but when we are forced into absolute stillness by our own desperation. God can touch a person at their lowest, most unpolished point and forge a completely new direction.
So I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on today. We spent a lot of time analyzing Jacob's unpolished contractual vow as messy field-level trust.
Right.
In our modern lives, we often carry this incredibly heavy expectation that true transformation, true personal growth, or any kind of spiritual awakening requires instant, perfect, unconditional faith. We think we need to have it all figured out.
We want it all to be clean and tidy.
We think we need pure motives, unshakable belief, and a perfectly serene mindset before we can move forward. But Jacob's story on the ridge suggests something much more radical.
And frankly, much more forgiving of the human condition.
Yes. Perhaps at our absolute lowest, most terrified points when we are lying on our own proverbial rocks, feeling like we've ruined everything, a cautious, negotiated, messy field-level trust is exactly what is required to survive.
Just baseline trust.
Maybe demanding polished, perfect faith from ourselves during a crisis is the wrong approach entirely. Maybe all we actually need is just enough baseline trust to put one foot in front of the other the next morning and simply ask for bread and a coat.
And remember that the sacredness of a place, or a particularly dark season of life, is often only visible when we look backward.
Which brings up a whole other layer of how we process our own history. So the next time you find yourself stuck in an unnamed place, in a season of exhaustion or failure or fear where you feel completely unequipped for the journey ahead, remember the fugitive on the limestone ridge. The rock under your head, the very thing causing you discomfort, might just be the foundation of a completely new direction. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we will see you next time.